Good evening. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to the July 14th Planning Board meeting. First on the agenda for a public hearing is Random Ridge subdivision for a bond return. Mike, I don't believe you had any comments?
I do not.
And Rich nor Pat, correct?
Nope, no comments upon return.
Anyone from the audience like to be heard on this?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Maximilian Mahalik with the firm of Cuddy and Fader on the behalf of the applicant Blitman Mahopak LLC. We're here to ask the board to simply re-forward the recommendation that it made in 2018 for the bond reduction request for the Random Ridge community. This recommendation that was made in 2018 was for a reduction to $393,400 and was made following an inspection of the improvements made to that point. We want to discuss this reduction with the town board, but pursuant to the town code, we first need the planning board to make its recommendation before we can move forward. We understand that an inspection of the premises may be requested by the planning board. It is our position that that is not necessary. In 2018, based on an inspection that occurred then, looking at the improvements that existed then, that's when the planning board made its initial recommendation. Since then, only more work has been done, which may actually justify a lower reduction. But respecting the town's policies regarding how much it'll reduce a bond by, we are simply asking that the board forward its recommendation from 2018. There were a number of public comments received. These comments highlighted purported disputes between the applicant and the HOA in light of private agreements and various private arrangements therein. But these agreements, restrictions, arrangements, or any other shake of hands or anything written down, these are all private and have nothing to do with the bond reduction. New York law and federal law are consistent on this point. Private arrangements and compliance thereof do not fall in within the sphere of the planning board's review or any municipal body's review. This is highlighted in an attached letter that we filed this evening following receipt of the public comments. We sent it to Rose just a little bit earlier this evening, but I did bring hard copies for the board and for the board's consultants and town staff. I'm happy to pass that around now.
Please do. Now, know that none of us had an opportunity to.
Understood.
I was looking
Mr.
at my
Chairman?
mail till 4 o'clock.
Yep.
Just to that point, I received a letter at, it was close to 6 o'clock today, essentially addressing some of the written concerns that have already been submitted to Rose. So that letter from Cuddy and Fader is not part of the record, and if it's going to be made part of the record, it should be circulated and given to the board. Just know that none of them have, I haven't even read it yet, okay? That's because I got it that late. So nobody's read it yet, so obviously the board's going to have to, I would assume the board's going to want me to read it and opine on it, and I'm assuming that the board is going to want to read it as well.
And
That-
so just to follow up on that, we're going to need time to read it and digest it. Also.
Agreed.
We're not going to do that right now.
Agreed.
Anthony, you were going to say something?
No, I was
Yeah.
exactly in agreement with Joe's recommendation to hold off.
So that is understood. The comments were received very recently, and so we took today to prepare the letter to respond, and that's why I came in later this evening. I'm happy to pass around now just for convenience. Thank you. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. If there's any extras, I'll pick them up at the end, or you feel free to hang on to them. So I do have some points prepared, just kind of summarizing the letter, if I may, for the board.
So, Joe, since this is not part of the record, should we even accept this at this point?
The board can accept it, and, you know, you haven't read it, so a summary of it may assist you, but obviously, it's going to be up to you whether or not you wish to consider it beyond tonight.
But just to reiterate, not tonight, we're not going to go through this tonight, and I just put it to the back of my pile for reading material.
Understood, Mr. Chairman, but may I summarize some of the main points for the board's convenience?
Joe, I'm not sure none of us had any opportunity to look at it.
Again, that's up to the board.
No, I'd rather keep with what we prepared for this meeting, right? We've all prepared for this. I'd rather keep to everything that's been submitted prior to the last hour from ago.
Understood. I was just offering to summarize, understanding that the board still has to read it just for the purposes of the minutes.
You'll have plenty of time to summarize another time.
Okay. Then I will just wrap up by just reiterating that New York State law, the highest court, has clarified that private agreements and any disputes thereon, that is a matter between private parties. It would not hold up a bond reduction request. When we're looking at the town code, the bond reduction request is considering what improvements have been made and what is left to be made. And in 2018, that inspection was made, and it was determined what improvements were made and what was a justifiable reduction. And we're just simply asking for that recommendation to be re-forwarded again. We are not looking at any improvements made since 2018. We're not asking for a lower reduction amount. And again, we believe that the board felt sufficient improvements had been made in 2018 to justify that amount. And without any significant difference in what happened in 2018, we believe that the board has an obligation to reenact the recommendation then made at that time. I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you.
Thank you. What we'll do tonight is we'll go row by row in case several people want to speak, just to make it a little easier. And I just ask that once you have an opportunity to speak, try to keep it within 3 minutes, give or take, and let's not repeat ourselves if we can help that. We'll listen to you for hours if necessary, but let's do it that way. I guess we'll go on with the third row. This gentleman over. Anyone in the third row wish to speak?
Thank you so much. My name is Rubia Valenti. I'm a resident at the Random Ridge subdivision.
You need to speak closer to the microphone, please.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Thank you so much. My name is Rubia Valenti. I am a resident of the subdivision at Random Ridge, and I drafted a letter which was submitted to the board on Monday with signatures from 40 residents. Every single household in Random Ridge signed that letter with many questions and many concerns that we have. I note that the lawyer just mentioned that several improvements have been made, and actually we want to know what exactly was done and what improvements were made that would justify a reduction of the bond that they are asking for. There are still many things that are left to be done at the subdivision. For example, the top coating of the roads. There's some concerns of water drainage and whether they were done to full specification, especially the storm. What they say? The drainage, yes. And we really wonder if now that the prices have increased so much that we will have enough money to cover those things that are still left to do. It has nothing to do with anything private between us and the developer. It has to do with things that are still to be done in the development itself that hasn't been done. So it's really unclear to us. I've been living there since 2018. It's really unclear to us what has been done since then that would justify such reduction in the bond, and that's actually not taking into account how the prices have increased in recent years. And also, we've been trying to do a transition study, and we've been asking the developer to allow us to do a transition study that would determine if things were done properly and to the town specifications, but the developer has been ignoring our requests, has been denying our requests, and has not allowed us to do this transition study. So if we could have just a little bit more time and wait until this bond reduction is granted, that will allow us to see if everything has been done to specification. And we have reasons and concerns to believe that they will not be able to do it, to deliver the site as they have promised. And everything has been outlined in the letter as well. Tonight, you have more than 20 residents that are here. We're all very concerned. We really need your help, and we're asking you to consider these points as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hello, is it on? Can you hear me? Okay, my name is Emily Sabatella. I am an educator in Westchester and a lifelong resident of Putnam County and a community member of Random Ridge. I'm not professing to speak verbatim what everyone might be feeling, but I am reflecting concerns that we are clearly all feeling, as is indicative by our presence here tonight. This gentleman representing the developer asked what has changed since 2018. I think we can all say there has been a global change in the pandemic, and with it, prices have been inflated, materials have not been available. It has been ongoing, there have been ongoing difficulties in completing aspects of this development because of financial and availability of materials, and that is a massive issue. Again, as a teacher, I don't have, this isn't my wheelhouse, but to prepare for this meeting, I spent a long time looking through a lot of the documentation and was really impressed by the policies outlined by the board. You define the weight of the machinery that has to offer the top coating of pavement. You define how the curbs have to be. There is intensive consideration to the wetlands and the way that the root systems have to be replaced to prevent silt and easement areas. All of this is demonstrated and outlined and illustrated, I should say, on the building plans, but none of it has happened yet, which is maybe aligned with the timeline that is necessary for a building, but in a time when the project is almost concluding, it's concerning to see a pullback on the bond when there is such a large price tag to some of these big things that still need to be rectified. So I guess my question, and I believe the question of a large number of community members, is when does the town come out to take a look and to see that all of these policies that you've so carefully articulated and outlined, that they're honored, and would it be prudent to do so prior to granting the reduction of a bond? Because at this point, with the inflation of prices and the number of things that still do need to be satisfied, both outlined by the building, the plans and stuff, and the town, and witnessed to many of us here in our annual meeting, the developer acknowledged and agreed that all of these items needed to be concluded. So it's just curious to us why there'd be a pullback on that bond when, it basically leaves us without protection, is I think how I personally am feeling, and it makes us wonder how there's going to be accountability when there is some history of developer changing names of the company and pulling out of projects and leaving communities unavailable. We are your community, you are our representatives, and we need you because all the wetlands that you're working so hard to protect, we're part of that, and we're significantly concerned. It's not just aesthetic, there are things that need to happen, and we don't see how it's gonna happen with the reduction of the money that is necessary for that project.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Thompson. I've been living at Random Ridge since March 2018, the first one in. I think the biggest thing we're asking for today is transparency, right? We've had a lack of transparency. We don't know how these plans are going to be put into place. We don't know what sort of quotes have been obtained. I don't know what they're required to share, but we are in the dark on a lot of this. We wrote in our letter about the septic system. There was an issue. The developer claims to have fixed it. Ruby has asked a number of times for proof of that. We have not received it. We inherit these systems once the project is done, and we are on the hook financially for all of that. So what we are asking for is information, time and information here. The transition study has not happened because the developer owns 2 of the 3 board seats. She approves the funds to be released for these studies. She has refused to release those funds. We are not asking her to pay for the study. We are taking it out of HOA funds. She has said no. These are funds that we have contributed. She has no control over outside of only 2 of the 3 seats. She does not take the money when she leaves. She has not contributed the money. She is not required to contribute money by the contracts. That is not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is we are looking for transparency as we transition to this next phase of our ownership. So, again, they could probably do things cheaper than you would see on an open market, but we don't know that. There are certain environmental regulations required for our drainage areas. We don't know what the cost of that is. If anything is not done to code and then an environmental agency comes in a year, we are on the hook again for fixing those deficiencies. So we are not asking for much outside of information right now, and we have not gotten any of that information. I don't know what's required, but I don't think it's a big ask if all is being done above board. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Any other people want to speak on this potential bond reduction?
Good evening. My name is Denise Miley, and I am also a resident of Random Ridge Community.
I think that's on.
Am I not on?
I think so.
Is that good?
Yes.
That's good. I travel quite a bit. I've been a resident for most of my adult life in this area, and I just wanted to come out and certainly represent our community and also represent my neighbors. When you come and you look at Random Ridge, it's a relatively new community of homes, and there's a contrast between what you see in the way my neighbors have built their homes and are taking care of their properties, and the way the common area looks because of, I think, what needs to be done, as we've said tonight. And the condition of the road is as it's stated in the documents that have been supplied to the board, and some of the other areas that need to be taken care of. There is quite a bit of issue with the property that's in the middle of the development, so that there is flooding that's been occurring on the roads. And so not only is the road unfinished with some things that have become undone because of the construction, but also there is a stain in the street it's not deserving of the hard work that the neighbors have put in so far. And so again, I think it's a wonderful community. I have a lot of faith in the group here. They're very hardworking young families. I think this is exactly what this town needs, taxpayers who are going to support local businesses and be good citizens. And so anything you can do to help us would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I do want to say thank you for all the comments. It's always great to see a community be involved. So I just wanted to highlight, as stated in the town code, the bond reduction, it's a focus on what improvements have been approved and what has been built and what is left to be built. When it comes to these items that are based on a relationship between the developer and the HOA, so looking at, for example, references tonight at the transition study or the business plan, which separately I must note, typically municipal law doesn't allow boards to look into the finances of an organization. But looking at the business relationship between the developer and the HOA, looking at agreements that were made between those two organizations, none of that is relevant to the bond reduction. We are simply asking for the board to take a look at the improvements made, look at what plans were approved, and see what has to be left to be done, and based on that, come to a value that is sufficient for the bond reduction. I would note there's a discussion about increased prices. Currently, the bond sits at $650,000, and we're requesting a reduction of about $393,400. We do not believe prices since 2018, yes, they have gone up, but we do not believe they have doubled. So we do think that amount is still comfortable. You will see in the letter, we addressed a lot of the comments that were brought up tonight. Out of respect to the board, to not summarize the letter for you, I will not go into each of those. But there were questions about, for example, authorizing a transition study, or certain questions out there about the septic repairs, which were completed sufficiently. All of those are part of private conversations between the developer and the HOA. Again, these are not related to improvements. Of course, any work that has to be done on the site has to adhere to town regulations and the plans approved. And it's our position that everything was sufficiently completed. And we are more than happy to be transparent on that fact. And I think there is something to speak to our transparency by the fact that we are trying to respond to the comments that came in, even though you'll note in our letter that we believe a lot of these comments are not relevant to the bond reduction matter. So I just wanted to summarize that for the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question. There's been a letter submitted by the residents identifying problems. You say you addressed some of those problems, but have you seen that letter?
Yes, so this letter that we provided this evening is in response to the letter that was provided to us. We understand that there was one letter that was signed by many individuals in the community, and this letter is in response to that letter. Yep.
Okay. And is there a contractor currently on site finishing up, progressing forward?
So just to clarify, Chris Munch was a gentleman. He was not a general contractor. He was an employee of the developer. He is no longer with the organization.
Let him talk. Please.
He is no longer with the organization, but the applicant's representatives, they are fully prepared to complete the project as approved and to ensure all improvements are completed.
And who is that?
So Robin Winters has been the main representative of the Blitman Mahopac LLC applicant.
And that's the active developer right now?
Correct.
And how long ago was this gentleman separated from the company?
I understand that it was very recent, I believe in June.
And the contractor now is licensed to do this type of work?
So I don't want to represent that I know who the specific contractor is at this moment, but we are happy to provide that information.
Just for the people in the audience, when you speak out, the TV cannot hear you, the people listening cannot hear you. You're more than welcome to come and use the microphone. I'd just like to keep some order here. Any other questions right now? People, please come on up.
Good evening, everybody. So my name is Mark Kessman. I'm also a resident here at the Random Ridge. And our biggest concern, Dad, is that if the bond's reduced, we have about 40,000 square feet of blacktop that has to be done. We have a planting design that has to be done per the town. And we also have wetlands controlled. And I happen to disagree with council. Inflation has gone dramatically up, especially for blacktop. Blacktop in 2018 was about $80 per ton. Now it's $160 per ton. You do the simple calculations, we're going to be in excess of $300,000 just doing the blacktop. No plantings, no nothing. So it doesn't leave us much room to do it. And also, the general contractor was represented as Chris Munch, and always has been by Robin. And right now, Robin is the only one on the premises, and the company is also from the limited liability of New York, has started a dissolution process already. They've changed their address. They've laid off almost everybody in the company. So right now it's just Robin, and she's the one who's accepting deliveries for everything and overseeing the project, who has zero experience with communities and building communities. And it also is in several federal lawsuits right now in other territories in the state of New York for doing the same thing that she's doing now. So our biggest concern, like I say, if we reduce the bond, there'll be clearly not enough money to cover the blacktop and the planting designs, which means, as my neighbor says, John, will have to come out of our pocket, and all the unknowns on top of that. So we just ask that the board pretty much inspect the property, take a look at it, reserve their decision for a later time, and let the evidence be presented by council and our side before you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. Just to be clear, none of this is personal, and all of this is based on information that we have that is factual. There is a business behind these people. This is your, I just have to say again, this is your community, and there will be like semantics and all the right things said. We've been told the right things. I believe that the bond is to protect the project in the event that the developer doesn't follow through. But as Mark has cited, that's why we're so concerned, because if there is not that accountability, this amount of money is not enough to cover the abandonment of the project, which history has shown seems to be a pattern that we are extremely fearful of. So again, I mentioned I'm a lifelong resident of Putnam because I believe in this community and I believe in this county and I believe in this process, which is why I looked up all those policies, and I think that that's the biggest point, is that this is not personal. You're hired to be here, and I understand that, but this is our lives and our homes, and we simply are going to be left high and dry. So we just desperately ask for your consideration and investigation, deep investigation. Knock on our doors. We'd love to have you. But there are people that have been hired by the developer to inspect the site that have cited things that they decided not to follow through on. When we've inquired about them, we're told it's our problem. That's a quote. So thank you for your support, and I hope that that helps just paint a picture of why we're all here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Romaine Wilson. I'm also a resident at Random Ridge. And just to surmise again, pretty much I echo everything that my neighbors said. Counselor today for the developer came before you and referenced improvements from 2018. That's 4 years ago. Council also disagreed with inflation, which is absolutely absurd. And not to mention the fact that the letter that was submitted to you today on behalf of Counselor came in at 6 p.m. Utter disregard for the board, and kind of surmises again the type of relationship that the developer has presented to us and now to the board. I would respectfully ask the board to just consider holding off on any reductions at all until you've had an opportunity to review our letter again, Counselor's letter, and you can make a better informed decision as opposed to what you're hearing all tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just a couple other items I wanted to note based on the comments received this evening. There was a comment regarding Robin Winters and potential lawsuits she might have been involved in. Happily, we live in a country where being involved in one's lawsuit isn't going to mark one's character, and also those types of matters when it's separate projects in separate communities, they're of no relevance to a bond reduction request this evening. I would also like to note that looking at all the improvements that were made since 2018, we are still pushing for the recommendation that was made of $393,000, even though all those improvements were made in 2018, which we believe will give significant buffer to complete the final items that have to be completed on the project. And again, just to reiterate, the reason the letter was submitted this evening was just because the public comments were received so recently. We wanted to make sure that we gave you a comprehensive and sufficient letter, and we do understand that you have to read it, and you may have some questions, but I just wanted to come up just to clarify some of those items.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does your client have a completion plan for this project?
I cannot speak to a specific completion date, and I wouldn't want to do that without consulting with my client. However, I do understand that it's not a significant amount of work. There is work to be done, no doubt.
All right, well, that's step one. I want you to acknowledge if there is
Yep.
work to be done.
Yep.
I'd like to know what it is.
Yep.
All right, we have 2 letters here, but for us to make an informed decision, we need to get on the same page literally.
Okay.
The residents' issues, your responses to those, and then we'll make a determination. And I need to know a completion plan with a schedule.
Anthony, it's almost, if you're running a project like this, right, you have project management, you have a schedule, you have a time frame, you have a cost, right? It's pretty basic project management, right?
Yes.
And I can visualize a spreadsheet with a Gantt chart or some kind of charting. You know, this is going to be, first of all, agree with the HOA on the issues out there, right? And then you say, okay, September, December, January, what dates will be done? I would think that's somewhere in your office or in their office or someone's office. There should be if there isn't. It's basic project management 101.
So I can bring this request back to my client, and we can look into preparing what could be feasibly prepared.
I think the place to start is to reach agreement to what the issues are.
And on that note, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say, when it comes to completing final work and how that relates to a bond reduction, we would just respectfully request that any requirements placed by the planning board be specifically related to the improvements that were shown on the approved plans, and don't necessarily incorporate any separate agreements that are private between the developer and the HOA.
I have to say, I don't really put a lot of weight right now on something from 2008, since half this board wasn't on the board in 2008. So, 18, I do think we need to go back and look at it. We certainly need to work with our engineers and our consultants there to come up with it, but I'm not ready, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm not ready to lower the bond right now. I don't know, Pat or... Rich, Mike, Pat, do you have, and the board members here, do you have any comments?
I think, Mr. Chairman, you made it very clear. We have a menu of items. They have either been done or they haven't been done. That needs to be verified. The outstanding items need to be paid for. So I think it's a very clear exercise, as you said before, project management.
I'd also like to see and confirm who the developer is with all contact information and a list of every subcontractor who's going to be performing those tasks that are going to be represented on that completion schedule.
Ray and Bob, you both have questions?
Yeah, I too feel we're not ready to make a decision tonight. But in addition to the list of items that have not yet been performed, I'd like to see a value next to each item, itemized values, and let's see what the disparity is between what the two sides are saying.
And I would ask only because her name was quite prominent tonight, Robin Winter. So I know in your letter you say that she is not an owner of Blitman Saratoga LLC. So if you could just clarify, who does she work for?
So that would be Blitman Mahopac LLC. I can get the current owner information, get that specifically for the board in our next submission.
Well, I'm just curious about this particular individual because her name kept coming up.
So Robin is the lead on the development on the project, and she has been our contact throughout this. So I can only give you Robin's name tonight, but if there's any additional information that I can provide, we will provide that to the board.
Okay, so she's an employee of
Blitman Mahopac LLC.
Blitman.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Vicky, did you mention something?
No, the only thing I was going to say is, sometimes it's really easy to get caught up in a lot of this stuff, and I applaud everybody for coming forward to express your concerns. I mean, as homeowners in the area, I think we all feel the same, pride in our homes, and wanting to get to the point where we're satisfied with what was promised in the beginning. So I think what's been laid out, understanding what the HOA wants, making sure that everybody's in agreement with what has to happen, and then laying out the plan, as we've said, along with, as my board member mentioned, the prices. What's the difference? Because inflation does play a big part in this. Whether or not you think it's double or not, it's big, and it's getting bigger every day.
So I can definitely bring these requests back to our client and figure out what we can provide to the board, what's feasible to provide, and see, make our best effort and most diligent effort to provide the information requested. But we will definitely look forward to being as transparent as possible and working with the board.
Anthony, anything else you want to weigh on?
No, I think we give them enough homework to do. We'll work through this. We have to be fair and reasonable when we do this. I would ask the homeowners to just keep in mind one thing. You're entitled to what you're entitled to. They're not your maintenance company, okay? I have to say that because it rears its head from development to development. They're not your maintenance company, but you do certainly deserve to have what is owed to you, and we will make sure that happens.
Ray, anything you want to add?
Nothing else.
Bob, John?
Nothing.
Let me just, Mike, Rich, Joe, Pat, anything else to weigh on?
Right,
Joe, do you have any?
The only thing that I would add, and I think Rich wants to comment on something, obviously the letter that Cuddy and Fader had emailed to me and is now made part of the record, the board should take time to take a look at that, and especially in light of the public opinion. The board is certainly well aware of what private improvements are and what public improvements are, what improvements are bonded and what are not bonded. So the board can parcel through that fairly quickly. and then Rich can address the issues with respect to a further inspection.
Thank you, Joe.
Rich, would you tell us what you're planning on doing as part of this conversation tonight?
I'm retiring tomorrow. So what I recommend to do is, I think the board brought up a bunch of points. Joe's brought up a bunch of points, right? We know what the performance bond was listed as. We know what the prices were in 2015, or when they were originally done. We know in 2018 they came back. They were lowered at that point in time. There was a bond reduction here prior, so that the folks know that there was a prior bond reduction on this. I think we need that list. We need to figure out what you need to do to complete this based on what the plans are, based on what is listed as part of what is required as part of the performance bond, what is part of the public record, their public assets that are there, right? So we can meet, sorry, Mr. Chairman, we can meet with your engineer. I don't know if Putnam Engineering is still the engineer of record. They were originally. I don't know if they still are. They're the ones who developed those pricing. We can walk through there. We can go with the chairman if he'd like to be there, and we can make this happen in a relatively short order. But I'll put the onus on you guys to come back. Here's the list of things we need to do based on the plans. We'll go back and look at what's on the plans, which we've done already, but we'll do it again to make sure that they are up to snuff based on what the plans are.
Rich, that's where I was going to go, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
It's premature for you and I, or any board members, to go relook this right now. We need you to come back and say, this is done, this is 90% done, this is 80% done, and to the point that Anthony and I brought up, what's your plan, what's your project management schedule? So then we will put our time into it and go. But for us to go out there now, we could look at things and say, oh yeah, that wasn't completed, or that was completed. It would be too haphazard for us, I believe.
Correct.
Please, you want to say something? You need the microphone.
We may even want to, in Creek Walk, have a representative from the homeowners association.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your decision tonight. We really appreciate it. I'm not sure what is required, but it would make the process go much smoother as they complete the project and we move on to our next phase if there can be some inclusion of the residents. We have some very intelligent residents who can represent the entire community, and if there is transparency, as I said earlier, if everything's above board and there's transparency, this will go a lot smoother. A lot of us are here today because of a lack of information.
Anthony, as you were walking up, just mentioned it'd be nice if someone
We
from the
can
HOA
absolutely
joins
recommend
us
one,
when we
2,
go
or
inspect
3
some
people.
property.
You tell us how many you would like, and we can
Sure.
get nominees for that.
When we schedule that,
We can do it, we can be there during business hours, we can come to your offices.
Mr. Chairman, based on prior experiences with similar issues of this, I want one person, because
Yeah.
it will not be easy to then now be answering questions, and you're gonna get a question from here, a question from there. Then if it happens that there is the applicant or the owner is there, and then we're there, and then we're gonna be bantering between each other. One person, they represent this group, if that's the case, if that's what the board wants. More than one, if one can't make it, have a substitute, have that person as a substitute, but one person be there.
Rich and I
I
have done that
recommend
before.
that.
It does work better, and it doesn't mean anything's closed. We're going to keep open the public hearing tonight.
Okay.
We're not going to close it, which typically we try to close the public hearing. We're going to leave it open, so everyone's welcome to come back when we close this.
Thank you very much. I turned around, I saw nodding heads from my residents. We will pick one person and then some backups.
Good point, Rich, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, you may, all the documentation submitted by the applicant, it's public documents, so you have access to everything that's being submitted.
Okay,
Thanks.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for the point of clarification, so as I said, we'll go back with all these requests to our client and provide what is feasible and reasonable and our best due diligent attempt to satisfy your requests. Just to clarify then, when we provide, if and when we provide the schedule and what has to be done, estimated of cost, does that roll into possibly a joint site inspection where then a member of the HOA would also come in? I'm just trying to get an idea of the timing of what the next steps would look like on that front.
You give us the information, let us have a chance to review it. We may just go out without anybody there. We'll just go out on a Tuesday, or whatever day it is, just to take a quick look at it, set up a meeting, and then go from there. So it's not that we're not trying to be transparent. Sometimes it's just easier when nobody's around. You're not there, and you're not there, not that you shouldn't be there, you live there, I got you, right? So, but it might be easier that way. So I think that's gonna be, I'll call it a game day decision, right? Let's get the information first. Maybe we set up the meeting and we all walk out there at the same time, but we need to digest what you got, and some of that has to be on our own, walking out there and taking a look and understanding it. And it might just be the chairman and myself showing up there, right? And if we refuse to speak to any homeowners at that time, understand that we're doing that on purpose, but not to be insulting to you or your intelligence or anything of where you're living. It's just we want to keep it clear and narrow based on what we have, and then we will certainly meet with you all, or the one representative and the representative from the management, or the, you know. So I think that's a way to do it.
Understood.
If you're not comfortable with that, Mr. Chairman, you know,
No,
we
I'm
certainly
fine
can talk about that, but I think we need to digest it
There
first.
will be transparency to this meeting is going to stay open.
Understood.
Public hearing's going to stay open. You know, this is all, as Pat mentioned, public information, so the letter from Random Ridge talks about water drainage, septic issues, pavement of streets, landscaping, driveway curbs, road dedication. We should be, no, yes, I agree with that, it's going to cost us $200,000. No, I don't agree with that, and we got to go back and forth and figure it out.
I can definitely bring your request back to our client. I just want to note for the record, and I've already heard the board and the council's opinion on this. I just feel as a advocate that I do need to note this for the minute. I think it is somewhat a bit unusual having a member of the HOA at a meeting like that, but it does sound like that's been the practice of the town in the past, and I hear the message of the board, but I just had to note that for the record.
And may I
Thank you.
note something also for the minutes? Before I heard you say if and when you bring the plans, it's not if and when, it's when. So we need to see, everything we've asked for has to come, otherwise it's not going to work.
And I am happy to bring that request back to our client.
Okay, but you said if and when, and it's recorded, so when we put the minutes together, we want to make sure we're clear. It's not if and when, it's when.
I will
You're
bring,
welcome.
I will pass the message along. Thank you. Yep.
I just wanted to reiterate.
Sorry.
I just wanted to say, because he mentioned me, I'm the HOA member who is here tonight, along with 30, 40 residents. And all I want to say is that I've been trying to get transparency since I am in the board. I've been there for 2 years. You'll see that I attached to the letter emails that I exchanged with Robin Winter. And for example, since the last HOA meeting that we had, we asked for a transition study. We told them that we wanted a transition study. I've been trying to get one, and all she answers is a one-liner, I'm not aware of that. So it's very difficult as a HOA member to try to get any answers from her, and unfortunately, there has been no transparency. So I really appreciate you asking for these things that you are tonight, because it's almost as if I'm talking to a wall in many cases, because she just doesn't give any information, and we're just in the dark. So we really appreciate that. And one thing I want to highlight, the water issue that we're having on lots 4 and 5, which actually impacted the whole development. I submitted video, which you can see. There are links to the videos which was submitted. You can watch all the videos that were made. And essentially, she basically said that it was a HOA issue, and she already submitted invoice for the HOA to pay for something that the developer should be paying. It's part of the development of the project to make sure that the drainage is working behind the lots and not something that the HOA should be responsible for. But she already billed us in June 27, for almost $1,000, and she's planning on billing us to fix that issue, which is a developer issue. So the issue goes a little bit deeper than what you're seeing, and I just really want to point that out so that you take a look at that carefully and that you watch the videos. You can see all the issue and the problems there, and it's clearly in her properties, and still she's making us pay for it. And again, as the HOA member, I try to oppose. You'll see the emails that I exchange with her, and you'll see the way she responds, so that you have an idea. But I really just wanted to make sure that the board is clearly aware of these things. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the information. Do you have a point person, by the way?
Okay.
So we'll keep the
Keep the public hearing open. Thank you for coming out tonight, and we'll see you in the future. Thank you.
too much fun over there. You notice that?
For sure.
Where is this development? You don't want to.
Okay, next on the agenda, John Regan, 1751, public hearing, Route 6. Mike, Rich, and Pat, I believe you have no comments. It's here for a public hearing.
Yeah, my comments have been addressed.
All our comments have been addressed, Mr. Chairman, and you have a draft approval resolution before you this evening.
Anyone from the public wish to be heard on this?
Mr. Chairman, being there's no public comment, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye. Yeah, make a motion to adopt the amended final site plan resolution.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, Joel.
Should we, Pat, should we call out the resolution out for the record?
Not necessarily.
We're okay?
So you got it tonight, the chairman can execute.
That was a tough act to follow, Joe. You did well. That was a tough act to follow.
Joe, sometimes it's.
Yeah. Saying nothing is saying everything. Good night.
Good night. Next on the agenda is PGI LLC Endoscopy Center, 667 Stoneleigh Avenue for amended site plan. Oh.
Bye, Joe.
Mike, I believe you had a few comments.
Yeah, the first one's wrong, though. I meant to say they provided the expanded view, I said provide. So they did give a blow-up of that area, which is helpful because it was hard to see at that 50 scale. You gave us a little bit of details of the travel path from the handicap parking spots to the building. You should show a lot, like how they're gonna go. Give us a line, a dash line or a highlighted line or something, because there's no path.
The point is that what is there now is there now. This, what we're doing now is only exit only, so the patients that go to our client go from the entrance out on Stoneleigh Avenue.
Understood, but just show us the path for those spots. Where are they gonna go? Which way is it?
I thought we had a.
There's no path, but anyway,
Okay.
we'll talk afterwards. There's gonna be a 3 or 4 foot space between the building and the stairs, the new stairway. Make sure somebody's gonna maintain that and the grass isn't gonna grow and become a fire hazard in there. What's the fire rating for the door, wall, et cetera? Will sprinklers be installed in the new stairs? You told me probably, but let's
Well,
get an answer
actually,
on that.
since we spoke, yeah, the answer is yes. And of course, the door at the bottom, which you're talking about, will be a 1 hour fire-rated
Yeah.
door.
And the parking calculation now includes the pharmacy, as we discussed last time.
Yes, there was, for some of the board members who weren't here, there is one section of that, of the barns, which is not medical, which is a retail. So we recalculated the parking so that we had covered the parking for the retail plus all of the medical facilities.
Pat?
And we'd asked for some minor details on landscaping and lighting. Joel's added those to the plan, so we're good to go.
So, Joe, what drove this? Why, the practice was told they need to add second means of egress.
Well, this particular practice is run by an agency up in Albany, and all these years, they approved it yearly, on a yearly basis, and this particular year, back in 2021, they changed their rules and regulations, and they required that any facility above the first floor had to have 2 separate means of egress, and that's what caused this.
Thank you.
So it was something that a state agency required, not, we didn't want to do this on our own.
Mm-hmm. Any questions from any board members? It seems like it's improving the.
I'm good, Mr.
Right? It seems like it's an improvement. So if there's no questions, we need a motion to schedule a public hearing.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
you, Joe.
And, again, we
again, we're under the gun with this agency, so if we could have a resolution possibly, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I believe we can do, this is an improvement to the property, and it's a safety, it's an enhancement to safety, so yes, we can have a resolution prepared, as long as you've done the things that
No,
Mike's.
those few items that
Right.
Mike talked about will be included. Thank you very much.
Sure, Joe.
Have a good night, Joe.
Next on the agenda is Dynamic Properties, 70 Glenita Avenue, residential site plan. Hi, Paul.
Good evening.
Mike, you had some comments?
I did. Floor plans of each floor in the building are now submitted and labeled, which was, the upper floor was not labeled last time. Is the attic going to be attic or living space when they finish this? It says it's going to be part of the apartment, but I don't know if it's attic for the apartment or living space. You may have to do something with the sprinklers and things of that nature. The shed is now labeled to be removed. The trash bin must be in an enclosure. Provide details. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 variances are required from the zoning board. Or 12. 1, 2, 3,
Rich,
4,
you had some
5,
comments?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I had to step out dealing with the water emergency in Water District 12. I'll make a public service announcement now. Everybody, please curtail your water use. We are in a drought. Everybody, stop using water that doesn't need to be used. So for my comments here, no site improvements, it doesn't have any additional comments, there are no changes, so we're good. No comments.
And Pat, I don't believe you had any comments.
No, and if you remember, this is the application where they're using the adjacent parking lot for their required parking, it needs a variance. The concern was, is that we needed to do that. No showing submitted 2 or 3 letters trying to clarify that the agreement is in place. By the 3rd letter, it's been clear that the agreement is in place, and it's not superseding any other commitments of those spaces to someone else.
So Paul,
we're good with that.
I'd like to hear about the attic, if you don't mind. Mike asked you about it, I'd like to hear your response.
They haven't decided whether or not they want to make that into habitable space or not, so the reason I left it as attic storage, because there's still the staircase that would go from the one apartment up to the attic.
It's a walk-up.
So there's a walk-up, so whether or not it gets finished, obviously that probably needs fire sprinklers, being a 3rd story. And I don't know if they want to go to that expense. I don't know if they work things through that far.
And Paul, that wouldn't be for an additional unit, right?
No,
Okay.
no.
It would just be
Part of.
Part of.
the two, yes.
Now, that would have to come back to us, though.
Part of one of the 2 units.
get that on the record.
So, for everyone's benefit, this is kind of where our master plan's leading us. Rich and Mike and I have been on many master plan meetings, and
Not Jeff.
we're looking at doing more commercial, some commercial downstairs with some residential upstairs, mixed use. This happens to be a nice area. People that are living up, they can walk into town, spend some money in town. Very walkable location for this. So I think it's a good thought. We just want to make sure it's done safely and properly. We don't get too many chances at these.
No, it's a good location for it, in all honesty. It really is.
I just want to clarify, so the access to the attic, is that within the apartment?
That would be within the apartment.
Okay, so I guess my question is, to you guys, is that something that we should request that they do put the sprinklers in? Because how do you stop the tenant from using that space if the access stairs are within his apartment?
If it's storage, not insulated, not heated, not air conditioned, then it's storage and you don't have to do it.
Okay. And if he
But-
does improve it, it's improved illegally. If they needed a permit, they'd come to Mike, that would be the trigger.
But if people are living there and they say,
That's always the issue.
Yeah.
it's a good point, right?
I mean, that's my only concern.
The 2nd floor apartments, are they required to be sprinkled? No, it's only if they go into the attic.
I think Mike
There will be a
pointed-
fire separation between the 2 levels.
I think Mike pointed out there's half a dozen or a dozen variances required here.
Yeah.
So we would need a motion to deny it to the ZBA.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to deny this applicant to the ZBA.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We need to stamp.
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Mike just reminded me, this is also a use variance, so we need to also adopt a negative declaration now, so the zoning board can act on the use variance. So if you, by motion, authorize the preparation of a negative declaration, we can then prepare that and send it over to the zoning board. And there is no impact associated with this from an environmental perspective, so
then I-
the negative deck is justified.
I'll make a motion to prepare a negative declaration to forward to the ZBA.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Good night, everyone.
Good night now.
Good night.
Next on the agenda is Liberty New York Water, 23 MacArthur Drive, site plan. I have to say, when I started reading this, I thought it was Suez, and then I said, well, yeah. Mike?
The applicant proposes to add a PFAS treatment building to the water treatment facility off General MacArthur Drive in Carmel. That's not the access, but that's the road that they show. A use variance is not required from the private, for the private utility. The ZBA already made that interpretation. Referral to the ECB Fire Department, Putnam County Department of Health are required. If you could just provide a zoning table. I didn't see a zoning table on any of the maps. I could have missed it, but I did look pretty closely.
Okay, this is on. Yep, I think it's on. We can definitely provide that, thank you.
I'm sorry, let us finish
I'm
first,
so
then
sorry.
you'll have a lot of questions to answer. That's okay. Mike, were you done?
Yes, I am.
Rich?
So you're correct. It's similar to what we've seen with Suez. It involves the installation of a 20 by 14 by 17-foot building to house a granulated activated carbon treatment to treat water at this water supply. Referrals to Putnam County DOH, Carmel Fire Department, Putnam County DOH for well and treatment system. The area of disturbance is under the threshold of any criteria for New York State, but they provided a SWIP anyway, which is currently under review. All regrading should be shown on the drawings. They need to show traffic and vehicle movement plans, and any public improvements would need to have a performance bond and engineering fee. That's typically just the erosion sediment control and things to that effect on projects this size. Some more detailed comments is very few. Plantings, notes should be added to the drawing. Plantings installed per section 142 Town of Carmel Town Code and be inspected by the Town of Carmel Wetlands Inspector. All water service connections must be K-copper. Show if there's any additional electrical utilities being installed. The area of disturbance must be shown on the drawing and delineated by orange fencing. And there's a whole bunch of other more generic comments that they can or cannot address. It's what I've used in the past for the Suez ones. That's all I have.
Thank you. And Pat?
So as you heard, Mr. Chairman, we are now PFAS experts. This is yet another application similar to what you've seen before. This site has water improvements on it already. There's a water tank in a building. So this would be yet another small building as you've seen from the Suez applications. Mike mentioned we do need to see zoning compliance on the plan. It appears that it would comply, but we need to document that. Similarly, with respect to that, we need to know the proximity to the nearest residential neighbors. The issue, as you've considered in previous applications, pump noise, generator noise, lights, and so forth in proximity to neighbors. Do we need screening or buffering or landscaping around the facility? So we need to see that information. It's not clear how many trees would be removed, if any, on the property, so we need to see that. Lighting details, details on the pumps to find out if they are generating noise. Does the building attenuate the noise? Again, we're in a residential zone. Clarifying maintenance, how often do people get to the site? What's necessary? Is there a parking area that's required on the site? It is a smallish site for this zone. It's under the minimum requirement on this zoning district. So it is a little bit tight with regard to the surrounding properties around it. So getting an understanding of the context of this to the neighbors is really the primary issue we've got to pay attention to. And generator, again, we've spent a lot of time with generators on this. Is a generator proposed? Where is it going? Is it a permanent generator?
By the way, you did a very thorough submission.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So I'll actually pass this off to Matt because he is the site engineer. I can answer any general questions, but I think we do have some of the responses to your comments now.
Well, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like.
These pictures and everything.
That is in there, so it's,
I thought they had it framed in the
it's a nice setup.
So we are proposing an approximately 300 square foot accessory building adjacent to an existing treatment building. We're proposing about 15 green giant arborvitaes for screening.
So I'm sorry, you're adding a building?
We're adding a building, yes. Yes. The proximity to the adjacent residential properties, we're adding 15 green giant arborvitaes for screening. I heard a question about parking earlier. The only traffic generation that this site produces is a single vehicle once a day for maintenance to come and view some of the readings at the site. It's once a day, and then approximately every 2 years, they have to replace the carbon. So you have a vehicle coming in similar to a fuel delivery, a residential fuel delivery truck that comes in roughly every 2 years to swap out the carbon. We do have approximately 166 feet to the rear yard and 55 feet to the side yard. Construction of the building is going to be similar to the existing.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Were you just talking about side yard to the neighbor?
Yes.
So 165 feet.
Sorry, to the
That's to the property.
to the
Okay.
rear yard. Rear yard, 166 to the
Okay.
rear yard. And
So just again,
56.97 to the side yard.
distance then from the property line to the nearest home.
Oh, then you want it to the nearest home after that? Okay. That we do not have.
Well, we're concerned with neighbors. Pat mentioned will there be a generator, which is something we're curious about, and we are concerned for neighbors.
Okay.
And the placement of the generator.
Okay.
There is an existing generator on site that was installed previously several years back. We do not need to increase the size of the generator, so there's not going to be any change there. That generator, I believe, is a level 2 sound attenuated generator, so the neighbors, if they haven't complained now, I don't think they should complain because there's not going to be any change.
Just to clarify, that's a permanent generator?
It's a permanent generator, yes.
And it has been there for several years.
It's been there for about 2-3 years now, I believe. Yeah.
That's great. Actually, I really don't have much else to add. It's a small building, very little traffic circulation, and what I heard as far as comments earlier, we don't have any objection to that. I assume this is going to be presented in writing to us via comment letter, and we'll.
Is it a prefab building?
No, it is. It's going to be scratch built. The construction will be similar to the buildings that are on site.
Do you have a rendering of the building?
Yes.
Will the color blend in with the foliage that's there?
It's kind of a tannish color, and it's going to match what's out there now.
I would suggest, if you haven't visited the site, do so, because,
Yep.
you know, it's unlike the Suez situation, it's a stone building, seems nicely done,
Oh, yeah.
more permanent.
Yeah.
So this is a rendering of the proposed building.
We do have photographs of the existing building, so you can see we're looking to match that.
Can you review the dimensions of the building?
Do you have the exact dimensions? It's approximately 300 square feet.
In terms of what is the height?
I believe 15 feet,
15 feet.
so,
And-
16 feet, 6.5 inches.
And what are the size of the tanks inside?
The size of the tanks are, I think they're roughly 10 feet tall. They don't generate any noise either. I know that was another question. They're silent. Water just flows through them, but no one should hear anything through the brick building.
And how many homes is this going to service?
Roughly, I believe it's 79 or 80 homes.
I'm sorry?
80 homes.
80 homes.
Did you mention the finish is brick, or is it?
The finish is going to be split face block. So we did construction for a new chlorine treatment building at the site, which we'll show you here. We're looking to match it exactly. What we did was we tried to blend that building into the home as much as the woods as much as possible. So you'll see we have like a forest green roof, and then this is like it's a grayish tan split face block. Just very simple, small building. It's honestly like a glorified walk-in closet. So.
Maybe your walk-in closet's not mine.
Yeah. But yeah, so we will have fencing around the site. As I said, this is the existing generator that's on site right now. This is the area that we're proposing to install the building. We don't have the number of trees. I did have, as part of our plan to have the surveyor go out there and tag the trees that need to be taken down, mark any that are over 6 inches, so we can apply for any necessary permits after that.
The lower corner, are those lights above the doorway?
Yes,
Okay.
these are lights.
The new building, are you going to be putting lighting on the building?
Yeah, I do have a lighting plan. Let's see if I can put this out here. Can you just grab that?
Oh, yeah.
Test drive.
So we are going to have similar lights as we do on the existing building. They will be motion censored. So to prevent the neighbor over here from getting any disturbance, we've decided to plant some evergreens. I don't remember the exact species. Arborvitae, sorry. So this is the light disturbance. I know it's kind of hard to see here, but right past the arborvitaes, there's minimal light disturbance to the neighbor's property. Actually, there's no disturbance onto the neighbor's property. Their trampoline is on this property.
The foot candles at the property line are super.
Any other questions? If not, I believe you can work with most of the comments from Rich, have dozens or so from Mike and Pat, and clean up this application a little bit. We've gone through several iterations, as you probably know, with Suez, and concern with noise, trees, size of the building, generators, and it seems like you've submitted a lot of that. So I think we probably need another turn of the crank. And do you have, just out of curiosity, does Liberty have other water systems that be coming forward to us in the area?
I cannot speak to that. Unfortunately, the client couldn't be here tonight.
That's fine. I will remind everybody, this is an improvement in water quality for those 80 or so homeowners.
Yes,
So.
yeah. And as I didn't mention this, but they did take 2 of the 3 wells out of service just because they were in violation of the New York State MCL. So currently, they only have 1 well serving the system and a potable water truck there because the levels of that well they're rising.
Okay.
So to eliminate, public health, to eliminate a notice violation from the health department, as well as, for public safety, they elected to initiate a blending plan with the health department.
The board's learned a lot on water, as Pat mentioned. I think we could.
I'm sure this is not new perfluorinated compounds.
Move this pretty quick also, so, thank you.
Good job.
Okay, thanks.
Last on the agenda tonight is Yankee Land Development Subdivision, Bayberry Hill Road and Owen Drive. Good evening. Oh,
And making municipalities poor.
it is unfunded.
We can show that if you mix the water, contaminant levels go down. They won't let us, so they can just do that.
Wow.
Good night.
Mike, good night, thank you.
Yes.
Mike?
Read my memo?
Your memos, yeah.
Is this new to you, Mike?
The applicant now proposes to divide the original lot, 109.905 acres, into 2 lots. The 2 lots will then be re-subdivided into the lots that make up the previous Yankee development. They're really doing this, we frown upon the phasing. So by doing this, they're able to do it in 2 separate parts, achieve the same lot count that they would have gotten before, but it just works better for the developer.
Yeah.
Just as a reminder, this is a 110-acre piece.
Just.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Rich has several comments, that is Pat, and then we'll turn it over to you.
So as Mike mentioned, it's a 109-acre parcel being separated into almost 2 equal-sized lots. The engineering department has no objection to the subdivision being presented, as the plans are refined. Missing elements mandated by Section 131.13 should be incorporated into the design plans. General comments, referrals are going to be needed. DEC, DEP, Putnam County Planning, GML 239M, Putnam County Health, Department of Town of Carmel Highway, Mapac Fire. You have stormwater, wetlands, SSTS issues. Ultimately, they're going to have, the plan has to identify the total area to be disturbed, to identify what the stormwater criteria are. Performance bonds are going to be needed, stormwater bonds and maintenance agreements are going to be needed ultimately.
And Pat?
So, Mr. Chairman, you're all very familiar with this application. Yankee Development made its way to the preliminary approval stage of a 14-lot subdivision on this property. This is really a method to avoid our concern about phasing of development. So what the applicant is doing by creating 2 lots, it allows him to develop a smaller portion of the property instead of the whole property at once. So he's splitting the property in half, and he'll come back to you at some time in the future with a 7-lot subdivision and a 7-lot subdivision, similar to what you've already seen. So it's no change other than he's staging the ability to build a smaller subdivision.
Thank you.
We have the 14-lot subdivision on the flip side, but to Rich's point now, where the owner, Angelo Lupino, is here, this gives him a little bit more versatility in how to market. So for now, we're just asking for a 55-acre lot and a 53-acre lot.
Excuse the microphone, please.
A 55-acre lot and a 53 lot. Now, you'll see that the house sites that have chosen were the ones that were tested by the Putnam County Health Department and approved, and are identical to the house sites that were shown on the 14-lot subdivision that reached preliminary approval. So we just picked 2.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Just picked 2. And these are the 2 we chose. So we have 1 lot on 56 and 1 lot on 53 acres.
So, Pat, this needs to start all over again with a secret review, right?
It does, because we did seeker for the 14-lot subdivision. Theoretically, you could make some assumptions that it's smaller and less impactful. It's cleaner just to redo seeker for the 2-lot subdivision. So what you should do tonight is redesignate lead agency, and then after the public hearing, you can adopt a neg deck for the 2-lot subdivision.
So that's what we need to do is, we need a motion to declare ourselves lead agency. You have a few questions, right? Did you have any questions?
Yeah, no, I just have a question for Mike. In your memo, you talk about the Native American artifacts.
Did you guys put that on your secret, or they'll put it on the secret this time when they do it?
Right, it showed up and we cleared it with SHPO already. I don't know if we gave it to you, Pat, but. No, so if you remember, that came up as an issue during the review of the preliminary subdivision, so it will be addressed now. That has been cleared.
It has been, okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure. All right. Yeah, so I'll make a motion to designate the planning board as the lead agency for seeker review.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
You should have. I wouldn't have been on the agenda if there was not an EAF.
So, Rose, thank you, have a good night. Good luck. Rose sent out minutes from May 25th, June 9th, and June 22nd. If anyone's had an opportunity to review them, would you please make a motion to accept them?
So I reviewed the June 9th minutes and forwarded comments this afternoon. I reviewed the June 22nd minutes, had no comment, but I did not see in my emails the May 25th minutes. I don't know if it's just me or I'm missing something, so.
So make a motion then for the 6:29 and 6:22, then I'll ask others about them.
6:09 and 6:22.
Would you make a motion to?
I make a motion to approve the June 9th and June 22nd minutes, as, with the June 9th minutes reflecting comments I gave.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Has anyone had the opportunity to review the May 25th minutes? If so, make a motion. If not, I'll ask Rose to redistribute.
Let's redistribute them and then go back.
Okay.
I don't recall reading.
I'll let,
What?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Rich, in your notes to Rose, would you ask her to redistribute the May 25th meeting minutes, please?
Which one?
May 25th. We've approved, Bob's reviewed the June 9th and the June 22nd. We'd just like to all re-review the May 25th.
I'm not sure if it came from Dawn or Rose.
All right, so I was not paying attention. I apologize. You approved 6:09 and 6:22?
That's correct.
What about 5:25?
We'd like
Redistribute.
to
Redistribute.
redistribute them, please. It was before Memorial Day weekend, so.
You got it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.